we can create these user-defined simplified reps. In that dialog box I had open a moment ago, it had all the other different reps that were available in this model. So they have already been defined in the past. Also, I'll touch on this later again, but inside of a part, the options are slightly different, but that's just sort of a minor point for now. So when we're defining these assemblies, we have the ability to, do all these settings, and derive just means it's going to take whatever the setting is from above. Exclude means for this particular component or subassembly, let's remove it. And as it says there, this is not the same as suppress, because it works around the parent-child relationships. There is an assembly only option, which will allow the assembly or subassembly to be present with its datums, but any subsequent parts that are inside of it would not be shown. Okay, so if you're doing an assembly operation for a subsequent component, you could use that. Boundary box there represents the subassembly as a wireframe, so I don't know if that's so useful or not. Substitution is certainly useful. It allows you to bring in a lower level model rep. So you could have a subassembly which has a representation in it, and you want to use that representation in a higher level rep, so that can be done. In addition to doing the sub-level simplified reps, you do have these other options. Envelope does require the advanced assembly, but you can also use a family table and interchange. And interchange also requires advanced assembly. We will be talking about those that sort of interchange assembly in an upcoming webinar. Okay. And user defined, to be honest, I find this one the most useful out of them all, because it allows you to just selectively pick the components you want to show, at what level of detail you want to show them, and then don't show anything else. Okay. So these are, we'll see this dialog box in a moment. Okay. There is another example where we do have what's called an external simplified rep. If you think about file, if you're working outside of Windchill and just in your Windows file system, you have an assembly file stored, let's call it a.asm. You can, if you like, save out a simplified rep as an external file. So it could be called a_1 or something, right? Which then controls what you see. Like you can, instead of like opening an assembly, switching to a rep, you can just directly open the rep that you want that's been saved as a separate file. It is an option. It's probably something that you can work without using, but it is an option, and just so you're aware that it is there and you can use it, but I guess probably my advice would be that there's other options that you could use, particularly in Windchill as well, because it would mean another file that would need to be managed. Okay. So when we open, sorry, this screenshot's a little bit old, but this one at the bottom would be called now Open Automatic. And so when we're opening our files, we can directly open the rep that we need. Okay. So if we were to do this other workflow, which would be just to open, just click open button or open the master rep. Okay. Then when we open that up, then we can then open a specific representation. So there's a lot of information here. I'm trying to simplify things. If we choose open representation, it opens a separate dialog box. I think I just show you this stuff. We've already seen some of it. So if we use open representation, we've got the ability to open just a limited subset. Okay. Okay. So let's yeah, I guess this is important because if we're not careful and we set up all of these reps and we're trying to manage our resources, we can actually end up with more resources in our system than we had otherwise planned for. So this has gotten better over the time, but if we open a master level of an assembly and switch to a different rep, we now have both of those different reps in session, okay? So what we want to do there is potentially clean them up. And there are a whole bunch of settings around this as far as what happens. This is probably more for your just general information right now. We do need to go through it in more detail, okay? These are the config options, config.pro options that we can use to set it to control what happens when we do certain things, which can be set, I guess, for your company, could also be set locally for you, the on-demand settings there. And these are sort of all the different options we have there. So this allows them to be set in sort of a graphical interface. Up here is if we were more old school trying to set them in the config.pro itself.